We're live. So, hello, welcome everybody to the Fast Freedom Formula Wednesday live video call. No, it's not 1 o'clock. It's before 1 o'clock because we got bored talking to one another. Hey, James, how's it going?
It's going great, Michael. How have you been?
I am groovy. Today, unfortunately, Tony is out in Crete, having a horrible time drinking.
Unfortunately for us, not for him.
Yes, exactly. And we're going to have to just, carry on without him. But today today's going to be a lot of fun because James and I are going to be doing pattern interrupts. And pattern interrupts are ways of redirecting people's attention, redirecting people therapeutically, changing habits, changing behaviors. And there's lots and lots of ways that you can get really, really big changes doing some really simple things. But before I do that, let me tell you a story. That was a pattern interrupt.
Yes, it was.
So we're going to get going. So actually, I will tell a story. This comes from one of my mentors, Stephen Walensky, wrote this magnificent book called Trances People Live. We'll post that and some links in the comments on YouTube and on the Facebook thing. He was working with a lady who desperately wanted to have a child, and she knew that it would be bad, like really bad, to have a child because she was drinking daily, and we could go on and on about how severe it was. Let's just say it was severe, and she had tried everything. Ends up in his office for some hypnosis, and they did do some hypnosis and stuff, but he gave her a task, and this task was to go home after the session and stop at the liquor store like she always did, pick up whatever favorite bottle of whatever it is that she consumes, and she was to stop off at Walmart, Target, whatever it is, and buy some baby clothes and wrap that bottle in some baby clothes and put it in a bassinet.
Wow.
Okay. And he didn't give her any instructions about drinking or anything. Just said, put the bottle in the baby clothes, put it in a bassinet. And anytime that you want to drink, you have to pick up the bottle and take the baby clothes off and pour yourself a drink and set the drink down and put the baby clothes back on and put it back in the bassinet. Comes back a week later, she hadn't drank at all. Okay, because he had interrupted her, stimulus response pattern. And this is one of the ways that pattern interrupts work. James, I know you got a story, so go.
I do. This comes from one of my mentors as well. He shall remain nameless, but he's retired now, but he used to do a lot of metaphysical talks and a lot of metaphysical trainings. And he was a master at the pattern interrupt. And what he would do is he would be in the middle of training, or if he was training with someone else, if someone else was speaking, and he saw that whether that person was speaking or he was speaking, that the audience, the students or the people listening were beginning to kind of zone out, he would interrupt either the person speaking or he'd just stop what he was doing and say, hey, and he'd notice someone sitting there drinking water, because people, there were always, be somebody drinking a bottle of water, and he'd say, excuse me, is that water? And he'd just stop in the middle of what he's doing, and people would look up and look at the person, and he'd say, is that bottled water? Yes. Oh, do me a favor, hold on. And he would walk over to his table and pick up something like a little coaster looking thing, and he would bring it over, and he'd say, do me a favor, take a sip of your water for a moment. And he'd say, it tastes pretty good. He said, yeah. And then he would say, here, set the bottle of water on this little coaster for a moment. And he would have him set it on there for 15 seconds. And it was an energetic grid, like a crystal grid or something like an energy grid. And then he would say, now taste it and tell me what's different. Mm-hmm. A lot of hypnotic stuff going on there, and then he would say, and then at that point, everybody's paying attention again, right? Because they want to know what's different. And then the person would describe, how the water tasted better, and he would use some suggestions there. And then he would say, well, you know what, this is, I sell these for $25. I have plenty of them on my table back there, but you know what? This is a gift for you, my gift to you, because I want that water to be even better for you. and then he would go back into whatever he was doing. And it was a brilliant pattern interrupt. And of course, he always sold out of the
I was going to ask you, what did it do to his sales? Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Look, let me give you a different example of a pattern interrupt, probably something that you may have done or have seen done. There you are, not bothering anyone, and you're hammering a nail, going to hang a picture on the wall, and you're thinking about something, or somebody comes up behind you and goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And you hit your thumb with the hammer. Now, many things can be learned. Now, number one, get your thumb out of the way. But the other thing that we can learn from this is whatever it was that you were thinking prior to hitting your thumb with a hammer is now gone. So pattern interrupt can also be used to induce amnesia.
absolutely.
There's a story of Milton Erickson, and there was this very robust fellow, and he was giving a talk, and this guy kind of like goes up to the stage, and nobody can hypnotize me. People have been trying to hypnotize me for years, walks all the way up, and Erickson has him come up to the stage, and the guy sticks his hands out, and at that moment Erickson bends over to tie his shoe and leaves this guy hanging in the air with his hand out with like this. And then he reaches over and he ties his other shoe. And when the guy stands up, he catches his hand and goes, "Okay, you can just close your eyes and go all the way down into trance." So you can use pattern interrupt as a hypnotic induction. That is another way of doing it. Now, let's say that you have no interest in hypnosis whatsoever, which would be curious because you're watching this show. James, tell them what they can do with pattern interrupts. And you were telling me this cool thing about what they're doing on TikTok. So tell them about
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things you can do, like in writing, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but let's specifically talk about the TikTok thing. Because there are people using pattern interrupts on TikTok that don't even realize probably that they're using pattern interrupts, but they probably don't know specifically about the pattern interrupt. But they certainly understand the power and the efficacy of what they're doing. And basically, it's called stitching videos. So what they will do is you'll sit down, you'll be scrolling through TikTok, and you'll come across a video of someone doing something silly. For example, teasing, feeding bears, for example, right? Feeding a bear. And then the video will suddenly stop and you'll see a person reacting to that. The person who's posted the video is, and using the pattern interrupt has stopped you watching this video. And now they're going to say something about that video, or they're going to react to that video. And it just dawned upon me, as we were talking about pattern interrupts, that is a pattern interrupt, because you're used to just sitting there mindlessly watching this video and you're laughing, and then all of a sudden this person pops on the screen and says something. Now I think it's important to mention that with what this does, when you do a pattern interrupt, as Michael said a few moments ago, is that it kind of stops whatever you're doing. Like if you're hammering and someone says something to you and you hit your thumb, but whatever you were doing or thinking about is gone, right? And so what it does when you use a pattern interrupt is it kind of stops the conscious mind for just a moment. And again, you don't have to be interested in hypnosis, but if you're not, why are you watching this video, as Michael said? But nonetheless, you don't have to be interested in hypnosis, but it's just the way the mind works. And what it does is, for that brief moment in time, the conscious mind goes, and so you have this window of opportunity to inject a message. And when you use a pattern interrupt, there are three things that are likely to happen. The person is going to pay attention to the next thing that comes out of your mouth, or that they read or they hear or they see. They're going to probably accept it, and they may very well agree with it without any conscious mind interference. And so I see this happen a lot with on TikTok videos, where somebody will be saying something, expressing an opinion about something, an ideology about something. And if the person that is going to stitch their video to it and use this pattern interrupt technique, wants to say something opposing to whatever they use that pattern interrupt. And it's because right in the middle of this person making their point, at the height of that point, whoop, the video stops, and here comes this other person comes on to, and I think it's a very valuable, powerful technique for people to take advantage of. Now, again, 90% of the time it's just somebody reacting to something funny, but it is a very powerful marketing technique and communication technique as well, to just kind of influence people, you know. And you can use this in sales, you can use this with your children, you can use it with, you know, with all kinds of things. I've got a million stories, but I know that you have other things you want to discuss about.
What I was going to say is we also have parents, teachers, and coaches that are part of watching, you know, Fast Freedom Formula. Let me give a great example. You know, if you've got probably everybody here that's watching has had a toddler, you know, and toddlers, they're into everything. And you'll see parents going, stop, stop, stop. And what it'll do, it will stop the child, or you can also use it on a regular sized human, but you can go stop. But if you don't put something on the end of it, they'll probably go back to their regular behavior. So if I look at you, James, go stop and start drinking water now. What? Yeah. Exactly.
I'm looking for a bottle of water.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So what you're doing is that you're interrupting the pattern. Okay. And then you're directionalizing what they're doing. And what you're talking about with TikTok is a visual version of that. This is an audio version, and this works in management. This works in if you've got an employee that is doing blah blah blah, you can go stop and do this. And you're right, about 9 times out of 10, they will immediately, no questions asked, begin doing this. It's also one of the most powerful conversational hypnosis language patterns that you'll ever come across. And you can have it here for free without ever having to attend a course. Okay,
but exactly. And you know, can I tell can I tell a personal story here real quick?
Is this something you feel strongly about?
I'm sorry. Oh, yes, it is. It is. It is. But years ago, I was in the Navy, and I was a public affairs officer working for a general. I'm an admiral in the Navy, in the amphibious Navy, and we had a rocket attack on some of our on one of our ships that was sitting in a port in a foreign country, and they all of a sudden, you know, it came across the news, you know, that this had happened. And I was like, oh my goodness. And usually we get the notification before the news does, but for some reason it hit the news at the same time that we got the notification. So I went into, you know, and all of a sudden I knew our phones were going to be lighting up with not only the media calling us, but the concerned family members. And I was worried more about the family members than the media at the moment. But I ran into my boss's office, the admiral, and his aide tried to stop me, right? And said, the admiral's not seeing anybody right now. And I said, it is my job to handle this and tell him what he needs to do, and I said, please get out of my way. And he said, well, he doesn't want to see anybody. And I said, I don't care. And this was me as an enlisted person talking to an officer at that point. And he's like looking at me. I said, sir, you need to move out of my way. And I went into the admiral's office, and he's standing behind his desk, or sitting behind his desk. And he said, I said I didn't want to see anybody. And I shut the door and I said, you're going to see me. And the admiral looked, and it was such a pattern interrupt, because I said, sir, you can be mad at me later, but what you need to do right now is, as I'm scheduling a press conference, a meeting with the family members in an hour, and I will have remarks, or 2 hours, I think it was. I said, you're going to have remarks for them to calm them down. Then immediately afterwards, we're gonna have a press conference. And he's like, but I said, no, sir, this is what you're going to do. And this is me talking to an admiral, right? But he stopped for a moment, and then he went, okay, what do you need me to do? Because he was so used to this, you know, when the stuff hit the fan, he was used to kind of just backing down and just, you know, not taking action. And not that he was a bad officer, great officer, but he was just, you know, he didn't know what to do. He was spinning, right? And he was waiting for direction from Washington or something. I'm like, no, you're the boots on the ground. We have to do this right now. And later he came and thanked me. He said, you know what, you made me do what I had to do. But in that moment, I stopped that and said, this is what, and he did every single thing that I told him to do without question. And it was one of the defining moments of my career. But it was, you know, and these are important things.
Was it a defining moment that didn't cost you a pay grade?
It did not. No, I did not get in trouble. You know, I was like, because they saw that what I did, I wasn't being rude or disrespectful in any way. I was just like, sir, you've got to do this. This is not an option of you just, you know, cowering behind your desk and sitting in the dark and sticking your head in the sand. You cannot do that. And it was funny because later when I was telling this to other people, they were like, you said what to who? You know, but it was just one of those things. It was at that point, I was his advisor. My job was to tell him these things, you know, but the pattern interrupt in that case was very powerful because he was used to everybody just letting him do, you know, he's the admiral, he's the boss, he was used to people going, yes sir, you do what you want to do, you know, whatever. And no, I was not having it, because these family members were freaking out because their family is overseas on a ship getting shot at. You know, you need to let him know, you need to let these people know that their families are safe, you know. So it was a very, very interesting use of the pattern interrupt, but effective.
Let's talk about another one, and then I want to get I do want you to tell the folks watching how to do pattern interrupts for sales. But I work with athletes, and frequently I don't get at it. You know the deal. By the time somebody hits your office, James, they've been, you know, they saw everybody, and you're their last resort. Besides going to go see Superman. Okay, so you get somebody in my office, and I work a lot with athletes, and they'll come in and they've got a confidence issue, or they worked a lot with USA Gymnastics, and they will have it's not really a mechanical problem. They can do the mechanical move. They're getting in their own way. They're in their head. Okay, and one of the most fun solutions that I came up with is have them close their eyes and have them do their routine backwards, and they make some really interesting faces while they're like, because you can see them trying to figure out, okay, how would I move? You know, if you've got a kid that is doing, you know, they take 3 steps and then do a handspring round off backflip. Okay, try to imagine doing that backwards. So you're going to have to do a front flip, round off the opposite direction, and then do a back handspring into 3 steps. And what that does is it jumbles the way that you process the information. So when I used to go to gymnastic meets, you could always spot my athletes because they were the ones standing at their apparatus with their eyes closed. Because what they're doing is they have their eyes open, they're doing the maneuver forward, then they close their eyes and they do it backwards. And in the meantime, all the other athletes, you know, they're yanking on their ponytail or pulling their leotard out of their behind, or biting their fingernails or whatever. And my athletes are just calm. And when it's their turn to go, oh yeah. And I've had a couple of national champions, and yeah, it's fun stuff. Okay, but in the meantime, you don't want to listen to all the stuff that we did. James, tell these people how that they can use copywriting and sales pattern interrupts to increase their business.
Sure. One of the things that there are 2 things I want to talk about specifically, and of how to use pattern interrupts in copywriting. One is emails, and now that's with email subject lines. Okay, and it's funny because you see these techniques used, and even if you know how they work, they still work on you. okay? And they work on me, they work on everybody. Because, you know, if you have that weird subject line, now ideally it has to have something to do with your copy, but not all the time, right? The whole point of it is to get people, as they're skimming through your, I know Michael and I get hundreds of messages in our email a day, hundreds, right? And of course, you know, our messages from our emails from our students and our clients are very important to us, but we get a lot of other crap, right? But you're just like anybody, you skim through it, right? But I'll see that headline, that subject line rather, that says something. I'm like, what is that? You know, you know, and so there's a lot of things that you can do there. For example, let's say that you are you're selling some type of weight loss program or weight loss product or something of that nature. You could put a headline in there that says, don't open this email unless you want to lose 20 pounds, right? And who's not going to click on that? Of course you're going to click on that, you know. And if you look at, like, for example, social media, and I've fallen down this rabbit hole 14 million times, even though I know what they're doing, where it has that little ad that says, the scene that almost ended this series, right? And you're like, ooh, what was that? And you click on it, and then they make you go through 16,000 things before you get to it. And then it's something stupid, and you're like, seriously, that's not. And then this, you know, and so that's
5 minutes I'm never getting back.
Or 5 minutes, you're lucky. 20 minutes, you know, I'm never getting back in my life of clicking through all this crap. Well, we've all done it, but why do they still use those things? Because they work. So, you know, you don't want it to be spammy, but it can be sensational, right? And ultimately, you'd like it to have to do something to do with what you're selling, or, you know, or what you're talking about. Same thing with headlines. Let's talk about that. Inside on your website or in your sales copy, wherever that sales copy is, headlines are the same thing as the subject lines in emails. People are skimming those, you know, when they're looking at copy, especially on a website, they're scrolling down, and, you know, a lot of people still use long form. Long form works really well. Okay. But you have to have, people are going to skim that, and then they're going to go, ooh, you know, and the whole TLDR thing, too long didn't read, right? So the headlines, though, can be, the very first one can be something like that. You know, don't read this article unless you want to X, you know, and there's a lot of formulas for that. But that's a real simple pattern interrupt, because people are just scrolling through the text or scrolling through the emails, and they see that, and it stops them, and it interrupts that pattern of scrolling through. So those are a couple of ways of doing it, and that are really simple. And then one other way, let's talk about visual, is imagery, right? Imagery. If you put a picture in, even if it's a stock photo of something, it makes people go, huh? Right? For example, you know, one of the things that I'll just, and you guys may see this at some point, you know, if you're working with me or whatever, but there's an email that I email, you know, we all do marketing. We all do emails and introductory series of emails and getting to know me. Right. And one of the first ones I send out is a picture of me from 8 years ago or so, where I took my niece to her first concert. And at that concert, in that picture, I have pink hair. I had dyed my hair pink. And people see that and they go, huh? But it's a visual. It's right at the beginning of the email. And it makes them stop and go, what in the world is this? Right? Because they're not used to seeing me. You know, I'm a little dressed down today because, you know, I'm the pattern interrupt. I wore this shirt specifically instead of wearing a nice dress shirt and people are used to seeing me. So this is a visual pattern interrupt. But the point is that picture that makes them stop, and then they want to read, what is this picture about, right? So you can use those images like that, you know, like a weird picture that again, hopefully ties into what you're talking about, but it's a visual thing. So those are 3 ways that you can use, real simple ways that you can use pattern interrupts in your copywriting and in your emails.
Thousands of years ago, before I went back to school and became a hypnotherapist and all this other stuff, I had a personal training company. And just, you know, picture me in spandex. Okay, now try to get that picture. Okay, no. The most successful marketing that I ever had literal, and you know, we were poor back then. So it was a print, it was a heavy bond piece of paper, and I could print 2 brochures per standard page. Okay, it was printed front and back, and you know, you cut it in half and you fold them and you put them out in the, you know, in the different gyms, and it had one word on the front and a question mark, and it said fat. And I couldn't keep those things on the shelves. They would take, because when you opened it up, it said you don't have to be, and it immediately went into, you know, blah 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 blah. But I could not keep those things. You would see
And that's perfect. That's
it's just
beautiful.
like, and I don't know in our current PC environment if you could do that without being crushed by the supporters of fat shaming. But I mean, it was very, very effective. And, you know, it wasn't meant intentionally. It was just like a simple question, you know, and I don't know that it said, if it said, are you overweight? It would have had the same impact or the same punch that you know, that the F word.
Right.
People picked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been yakking for a while, but if you guys would like to know about more about how pattern interrupts work, how to integrate those into your life, your business, your sales, you know, or managing your teenagers, or you just have a couple of questions about coaching and hypnosis, just reply down in the discussion, or you can contact James, if it's okay. I'm going to put a link to your profile as well.
Sure.
So,
and anyone can feel free to contact me directly, PM me, or
I was going to say, let me tell you the last thing about pattern interrupts. If you have teenagers, you know this one, okay? You know this one, and you see, you get up, you know, and they have to put their phone down, and they have to, you know, give you the snarky look, and you go take out the trash. And you notice that they start moving toward the trash, grumble, grumble, grumble. They pick up the trash, you know, they won't carry it. They're dragging it out the door, okay?
right.
Don't say anything. Don't interrupt them. If you say one word, it will interrupt what they're doing. And you know, let them grumble, 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 take the trash out, grumble, 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 grumble. They sit back down and they return to their video game or talking to their friends or looking at their phone. But there are times that you do not want to interrupt people.
Very true. Very true. But and in closing, I'll say that one thing I've always had a dream about doing, and I won't say if I've ever done it before or not, but is when a person's sitting on a park bench and their nose is in their phone, just wanted to walk up and knock the phone out of their hand and just say sleep, and to just fill them full of an aversion to phones, and then bring them back.
Yeah, because you might need one. Oh, I did think of one more that is this one's sassy, and yes, I have done this, and I have had my wife elbow me for doing this. But okay, you know the deal. You walk into a restaurant and the hostess sits you next to a table, and you look at the table and there's tons of margaritas or tons of drinks, and you're just going, oh no. And you know they're going to be loud, and you know they're going to be laughing, and you know that they're going to interrupt your dinner. So here's what you do. You time them perfectly. And when they begin to laugh, you go, ha, 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 ha. And as soon as they stop, because they hear something, you stop. And if you will do that 2 or 3 times, it'll stop. They will stop. And
wow.
Yeah, and you just do that real weird laugh, and it like goes up to the ceiling, and it cannot be echolocated. You
wow, that's clever.
It works. It really, really works about quieting tables. And you know the type of table that I'm talking about.
I
but
do.
it could be any loud table. It doesn't work so much with kids, but you can't, if their parents are nearby and haven't drank too much wine, they will eventually hear you and they'll go close the, they'll go close the table down. It works. It works great.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks everybody for coming to the live broadcast that I'm going to take off and edit and put back on, but it's live while it's on. And next week, Tony won't be back. We're going to have to do something all by ourselves again.
That's okay. Tony's having a good time, so yeah,
Absolutely.
heaven forbid.
Yes. All right. So thanks everybody for watching. And this is the Fast Freedom Formula live show. Talk to y'all later.
Have a great day.